Hello, everyone. I hope you're enjoying yourself at ContainerDays Hamburg today. I am so jealous of all of you meeting together in person and having such a great time. You know, the crazy thing is, I actually just came back to the US from Europe last weekend. And so I'm extra wishing that I was still there so I could meet with you in person in Hamburg. But while we can't do that, this hopefully will suffice. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Priyanka Sharma, and I'm the General Manager, Executive Director of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. You may have heard of us since you're at a ContainerDays event. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what comes after containers and what is the bright future we are all looking at together. To do that, I need to use some slides. So give me a hot second and I will share my screen with you. All right, so as I said, I'm very thrilled to talk to you about going beyond containers into the future of cloud native. As I mentioned, I'm Priyanka Sharma. I'm the Executive Director of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. I act as an advisor at Heavy Bit Industries for developer products-based companies, and I'm an active advisor and investor in startups. In the past, I have been involved in cloud native since the early days. I was an open source contributor on the project called Open Tracing, which was the third to join CNCF back in the first year of its existence. Sadly, the project's been archived. However, it has led to the birth of open telemetry, and all the goodness that we did around distributed tracing in particular continues forward. After I worked at Lightstep working on open telemetry, I worked at GitLab, where I was elected to the CNCF governing board. And that was a very unique experience where I learned about how this very small organization has such an outsized impact around the world. I've, of course, had a much longer career in tech before, but that was all the boring stuff. It's the cloud native fun that's important. So before we get into the details of what's coming out in the future, I think it's a good thing to level set. So let's talk a little bit about what is CNCF exactly. So the Cloud Native Computing Foundation hosts the most critical components of global technology infrastructure today. And we bring together world's top developers, end users, vendors, and we run the largest open source conferences in the world. Our claim to fame is the beautiful, awesome projects that we host. The first and biggest one is Kubernetes, but alongside that, there are so many others like Prometheus, Fluentd, Envoy, Linkerd, such a long list. I'll get into the list later. So how did we get to cloud native? If we're going to look at the future, I think it's just as important to look at our past and learn where we came from. You look at this timeline over here and it's, so many cool things have happened over the decades. In 2000, we all were living with non-virtualized hardware. And that was, that stage. Over time, we learned virtualization with VMware. Then AWS brought cloud computing to the mainstream with giving compute into the hands of every developer. Over time, things evolved, and then with Docker came containers. Well, Docker mainstreamized containers in 2013. And then 2 years later, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation was formed with the open sourcing and donation of Kubernetes by Google. When we think of cloud native, what do we mean? We think of a way of building software that ensures that we make the most of the resources, compute resources, technology resources, human resources available to us. When I think of cloud native way of building, we segment applications into microservices. We package them each into their own container and then dynamically orchestrate them as containers for optimum resource utilization. What that leads us to is ship fast, reliably at the best possible cost. Today, CNCF's mission is to make cloud native computing ubiquitous. And in that journey, all of you folks who are listening to this are stakeholders. I like to think of our larger community as Team Cloud Native, and you are part of Team Cloud Native. Together, we're making cloud native computing ubiquitous. A key thing CNCF does in order to help the industry move forward is provide an official definition of what is cloud native. The reason this is essential is because so very often we've all lived through technology trends where there's a cool new term, everybody adopts it or thinks they've adopted it, and we don't get the impact that we were all looking for just because the meaning of that change got diluted. With an official definition, that is not the case. And the cool thing when we talk about what's in the future for a cloud native, you'll hear, is now we want to extend this definition for the telco providers with the definition of what is a cloud native network function, which is key to what the telcos need to go cloud native. So this cloud native computing definition relies on the utilization of certain projects that we host. As I mentioned, Kubernetes was the first project to be part of CNCF. Google created it, and back when they donated it, they did 80% of the work. Since then, their work has increased over time, but compared to other contributors, their contribution has gone down to 25% of all the work happening on Kubernetes. This is what success looks like. Today, so many companies from around the world, Europe, Asia, the Americas, everyone is contributing to cloud native and to Kubernetes specifically. I'm also very proud to tell you that today we host over 100 open source projects at different stages of maturity. The graduated projects are at the top of the funnel, where Kubernetes is one of the graduated ones, of course, but so are so many others, such as Envoy, Container Runtime, Jaeger, Prometheus, Rook, and the list goes on. These are projects that we put our rubber stamp of approval behind, and we tell everybody who's considering using them that they've gone through security audits. They're used by multiple end users. They have a diverse contributor and maintainer community. So people can trust that these are good technologies to bet on. Then we have one level lower, which is the incubating projects. And there's a bunch more projects that are incubating. These are also pretty mature projects and are doing very well with and solving real problems, but they are just on the way to the path to graduation and may meet some, but not all criteria. They are also very strong contenders of something to try out. And then comes the fun stuff, which is the sandbox projects. We have so many sandbox projects and the number keeps increasing. This is also the area where the future shines. Sandbox is where the most cool new creative technologies are introduced, which really stretch the definition of cloud native beyond the initial container orchestration story. Today, we have projects related to edge computing in here. We have projects related to AI. We have projects related to Wasm. There's so much good stuff. And every time there is a review, new sandbox projects come in and bring in something even more cool and something that extends cloud native even further. So if you are looking at the future, what the future is going to look like, keep an eye on the sandbox projects. All this is going on and is supported by companies around the world, many of which you all may belong to, and they support us by paying us dues and being part of this ecosystem, just like you and me are part of this ecosystem. I'm proud to tell you that CNCF enjoys the support of over 700 members from 6 continents. Sadly, we don't have Antarctica yet, and all these people are supporting us. This includes, by the way, every major cloud provider as a member and the largest end user network in the world. I'll get to what that is in a hot second. As I mentioned, the largest companies in the world are members, as are cool, innovative startups. So there's a room for everybody. And the reason that's true is because we are designed for long-term success by building end user driven open source. What is an end user? An end user is a company that utilizes cloud-native technologies, but does not sell any products or services around it. And that's what we call an end user. We have a special program for these folks, and that is the end user community. If any one of you in the audience who works for a company that utilizes cloud-native tech, but is not selling products and services, examples are, for example, if you work for an automotive, if you work for a bank, if you work for a cool web scale startup, all of those things count. And you should really consider joining the end user community where folks come together and shape the future of cloud native. And that, by the way, is something new in the world of foundations and in the world of open source. Not only do we give a voice and shine a spotlight on folks who utilize our technologies through case studies, interviews, all kinds of things, we give them an official role in the CNCF governance structure. We have the governing board, we have the technical oversight committee, and then we have the EUC, or end user community. The end user community provides feedback to the technical oversight committee about projects. They get dedicated seats on the TOC that are end user seats, so that they're definitely always represented. And their voices are critical in everything we do. This is something unique, and this is what has empowered CNCF to be the voice for change in the industry, be the voice for the best technological innovation in the industry. Over 140 organizations are part of the end user community. And if you qualify, you should totally join. So as we talked about, the CNCF scope, the cloud native scope, is ever expanding. So let's look into that for a brief second. Cloud native has become a very mainstay stalwart in the world we live in, especially because of COVID-19. The pandemic that we all lived through pushed people into the era of digital transformation. It was no longer a maybe, let's consider it. It was more, I have to reach my customers, my users, my suppliers, my vendors, and guess what? Everyone's working from home on a computer. All kinds of companies jumped in and used technologies very quickly to adapt. And cloud native was front and center of that journey. Suddenly, for example, in this past year, all restaurants needed to figure out how to take an online order. We needed to learn to work from home. Pharma companies built vaccines in record time using mRNA technology, and contact tracing apps had to be built within 3 months in a privacy respecting manner. All of this was built on the backbone of cloud native. KubeCon Cloud Native Con, our biggest open source conferences, we host EU ones as well as in North America and China. And the EU one that happened a few months ago in May, we had stories from, for example, the government of Ireland talking about how they used cloud native principles to do contact tracing. We also talked about how Anthem, a healthcare insurance provider in the United States, utilized cloud native technologies to build out a lot of their tech that they needed to administer and test vaccines. There has just been so much work that's happened with cloud native. On the more light side, DoorDash, which a lot of us rely on for food deliveries, utilizes Kubernetes. Zalando, all kinds of companies all over the world that gave us what we needed, especially during the pandemic, were built upon cloud native. And that has led to a lot of growth in the last year and a half alone. These numbers I have here are already out of date. So as I told you, we are 720 plus members now, and we've had over 20% growth. Contributors, we have over 125,000 contributors from 177 countries around the world. And projects, as you know, have grown by over 100% to more than 100, all during the pandemic. Why? Because people needed us and we showed up. Because of all this momentum, because of all this expanding number of end users using us, we have grown. If you look at the co-located days, which is these mini events that happen around KubeCon Cloud Native Con, which are technology specific, if you look at the EU ones, you see everything from Cloud Native Rust Day, to Kubernetes AI Day, Kubernetes on Edge Day, Cloud Native Wasm Day, Security Day. There's just so much new stuff because Cloud Native has evolved to run in different environments, just like Linux did. And we have grown projects that span different areas. We've gone from containers to fill in the blanks. And that is happening because increasingly diverse projects are coming to us. People believe in Cloud Native and CNCF as the best home for their open source projects. Why do they think that? Well, we're a neutral home. An endorsement by CNCF's Technical Oversight Committee means something. People get to engage with the end users I just discussed. There's a lot of support on marketing, press, analyst relations, and so much, thousands of dollars are going towards our support in documentation, security audits, case studies. There's just a lot of benefits and value that Cloud Native provides. You can maintain your committers, define your own governance, as long as you keep it neutral. No one is forcing anything down for you to make it happen. There's full-time staff that I preside over that is eager to assist. We have world-class events, the largest open source conferences in the world, worldwide meetups, resources for CI and scale testing, and all of this is available to any project who joins CNCF. And perhaps most importantly, projects join CNCF because with CNCF comes the diverse, vibrant community called Team Cloud Native. These are the people who have extended Kubernetes to work on the edge, to work in a car, to be working on planes. These are the people who reimagine how society can look like, how world can look like, and they just like to build. They keep going, they keep building. Who doesn't want those folks in their corner? And that's why, as I told you, we have all kinds of projects, from the very graduated being in a place where everybody can use them, incubated being the cool things, and sandbox being the very new, very exciting, really cutting edge technologies that people should look at. As I said, want to look at cool stuff? This is the place to go. Ultimately, I think CNCF has some very salient features. We're the fastest growing open source community in the world. We host the largest open source conferences. We support members, contributors, maintainers, everybody with different kinds of benefits. And our scope is ever evolving. And we have a community that has become the innovation engine across boundaries. CNCF's mission, as I told you, was to make cloud native computing ubiquitous. When I think about our 5-year vision, it is to create sustainable ecosystems for containers and beyond. And ultimately, we do that by being the end user driven open source foundation. If you're interested, our OKRs are available publicly, and I highly encourage you to check them out. And I would like to invite you to explore the future of cloud native together with me. KubeCon Cloud Native Con North America, LA, is a hybrid event, and it's coming soon in less than 3 weeks. Crazy. And while many of us are not able to travel still, almost every one of us can attend on a computer near you. So join us, sign up here, and this on the left side, by the way, are all the co-located events this time. So this time, for example, we have eBPF Day, a really critical technology. There's EnvoyCon, Kubernetes AI Day. We have a Developer Experience Day, GitOps, Wasm, really cool stuff in addition to the main programming. I highly encourage you join me there, and I hope to see you in that screen. With all that said, thank you so much for listening to me. I really enjoyed talking to you. I wish I was there in person, but this is the second best thing. I appreciate the opportunity from the organizers, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.